Hi, everyone, and welcome to AWS Initiate Online. I'm Audrey Shum, Partner Program Manager from the APJ Partner team that covers security. And presenting with me today is our Solutions Architect from the Philippines, Abigail Yakat. We're here today to talk to you about how to improve your organization's security posture with AWS. We have a very interesting but straightforward agenda today. We're going to be covering 10 focus areas that we believe every security team should spend time on, as well as later on, my partner in crime, Abigail, will be walking through a demo on AWS Security Hub. So how did this list come about? At AWS reInvent in 2019, Steve Schmidt, Vice President and Chief Information Security Officer of Amazon Web Services, introduced the top 10 list that you see right on this slide. Steve told the attendees at reInvent that all of these things are little individual components, but add up to a very big value. Steve also said, I really want people to focus on those elements that I think give them the biggest bang for the buck and also represent the areas where people stub their toe the most in the security space. The things that interest most of the CISOs we talk to about this list is that it's not a new cybersecurity framework or even a new compliance checklist. It's a very pragmatic list that potentially has big security value. Most of the items on the list are low cost or free. And many of them are relatively easy to implement. As you'll see, some of the items on the list are non-obvious. These are really the items that CISOs, CIOs, and CTOs are most interested in. Again, here's the top 10 list. I'm going to cover each item on this list in some detail so that you can understand each item and why we think it is important. I'll also give some pointers on where to find documentation along the way so that you can review after our session. So the first item on our list is actually accurate account information. It's really easily overlooked. When AWS needs to contact you about your AWS account, we use the contact information defined in the AWS Management Console, including the email address used to create the account and those listed under alternate contacts. All email addresses should be set up to go to an alias that is not dependent on a single person or aliases. You should also have a process for regularly checking that these addresses work and that you're actually responding to emails, especially emails that you might receive from abuse@amazon.com. So at the bottom of this page, there is a URL that I have here where you can learn about how you can ensure someone in your organization is receiving important messages, even when the primary contact is unavailable. The second item on this list is use multi-factor authentication, also known as MFA. MFA is the best way to protect accounts from inappropriate access. Always set up MFA on your root user and AWS IAM users. If you are using single sign-on to control access to AWS or to federate your corporate identity store, you can enforce MFA there. Implementing MFA at the federated identity provider means that you can take advantage of existing MFA processes in your organization. To get started with MFA in AWS, please visit the URL below. Item number 3, no hard coding secrets. When you build an application on AWS, you can use AWS IAM roles to deliver temporary short-lived credentials for calling AWS services. However, some applications require longer-lived credentials, such as database passwords or other API keys. If this is the case, you should never hard code these secrets in the application or store them in source code. You can use AWS Secrets Manager to control the information in your application. Secrets Manager allows you to rotate, manage, and retrieve database credentials, API keys, and other secrets through their life cycle. Users and applications can retrieve secrets with a call to Secrets Manager API, eliminating the need to hard code sensitive information in plain text. AWS Secrets Manager can be used in many different ways and for different types of applications, including those running on machine instances in EC2, for example, as well as those running in a serverless architecture like AWS Lambda, serverless architecture via AWS Lambda. I've provided a link on the bottom of the page that will contain other links to helpful blogs as well as white papers. Number 4, limit security groups. Security groups are a key way that you can enable network access to resources you have provisioned on AWS, ensuring that only the required network ports are open and the network connections are only possible from known network ranges. This is a foundational approach to security. You can use services such as AWS Config or Firewall Manager to programmatically ensure that the virtual private cloud security group configuration is what you intended. The network reachability rules package analyzes your Amazon VPC, virtual private cloud, network configuration to determine whether your Amazon EC2 instances can be reached from external networks. External networks such as the internet, a virtual private gateway, or even AWS Direct Connect. AWS Firewall Manager can also be used to automatically apply AWS WAF rules to internet-facing resources across your AWS accounts. You can go to the link below and you can look at the blog post. This blog post is about how you can monitor AWS account configuration changes and API calls to Amazon EC2 security groups. Number 5, we're halfway there, intentional data policies. Not all data is created equal, which means classifying data policies is crucial to security. It's important to accommodate the complex trade-offs between a strict security posture and a flexible, agile environment. A strict security posture, which requires lengthy access control procedures, creates stronger guarantees about data security. So, to protect data once it's been classified, when you are classifying or while you're classifying it, consider the following examples. If you have an Amazon S3 bucket that are for public usage, move all of that data into a separate AWS account, set aside for public access. Set up policies to allow only processes, not humans, to move data into those buckets. This lets you block the ability to make a public Amazon S3 bucket in any other AWS account. Number two, use the Amazon S3 service to block public access in any account that should not be able to share data through Amazon S3. Use two different IAM roles for encryption and decryption with the AWS Key Management Service. This lets you separate the data entry and related encryption from data review and decryption. And it allows you to do threat detection on the failed decryption attempts by analyzing that role. These are just a few examples, but I hope that you see the value in intentional data policies. Centralize CloudTrail logs. Number 6, logging and monitoring are important parts of a robust security plan. Being able to investigate unexpected changes in your environment or perform analysis to iterate on your security posture relies on having access to data. AWS recommends that you write logs, especially AWS CloudTrail logs, to an S3 bucket in an AWS account designated for logging. For example, a log archive. The permissions on the bucket should prevent deletion of the logs. These logs should also be encrypted at rest. Once the logs are centralized, you can integrate them with a SIEM or use AWS services to analyze them. The URL I've provided on the bottom of this slide will be able to help you learn how to use AWS services to visualize AWS CloudTrail logs. Once you have those CloudTrail logs centralized, you can also use the same log archive account to centralize logs from other sources, such as CloudWatch logs or even AWS load balancers. Number 7, validate IAM roles. As you operate your AWS accounts to iterate and build capability, you may end up creating multiple AWS identity and access management roles, also called IAM roles. You might discover later that you don't need all these. You can also use AWS IAM Access Analyzer to review the access to your internal AWS resources and determine where you have shared access outside your AWS accounts. To learn more about IAM Access Analyzer, go to the URL at the bottom of this page. Routinely reevaluating AWS IAM roles and permissions with Security Hub or open source products such as Prowler will give you the visibility that you need to validate compliance with your governance, risk, and compliance policies. You can also use AWS Config to continuously monitor, identify, and remove unused IAM roles. To learn more about this, please see the blog post at the URL listed under Detect and Remove Unused Roles. Number 8 out of this top 10 list is very, very important as well. It's important and yet simple. Take action on security findings. AWS Security Hub, Amazon GuardDuty, AWS IAM Access Analyzer are managed AWS services that provide you with actionable findings in your AWS accounts. They're easy to turn on and can integrate across multiple accounts. Turning them on is the first step. You also need to take action when you see findings. Take action to take the actions to take are actually really determined by what your own incident response policy is. For each finding, ensure that you have determined with your team what your required response action should be. An example of an action is notify a human being to respond. But there are also a range of other actions you can take using automation. For example, you can automate responses to the findings generated by Security Hub as well as GuardDuty. To learn more about automated response and remediation with AWS Security Hub, please visit the URL below. Now on to item number 9, rotate your keys. One of the things that AWS Security Hub provides is a view of the compliance postures on your AWS accounts using the CIS benchmark. One of these is to check for IAM users with access keys more than 90 days old. If you need to use access keys rather than roles, you should rotate them regularly. And then to review best practices for managing AWS access keys, I've also provided a link here on the bottom of the page. So if your user accesses AWS via federation, then you can remove the need to use AWS access keys for your users. Users authenticate to your identity provider and assume an IAM role in that particular target AWS account. The result is that long-term credentials are not needed, and your users will have short-term credentials associated with an IAM role. So we're at our last topic. And I thought I'd introduce this final item in our top 10 list, be involved in the development cycle, using a quote. Again, this quote is from our AWS Chief Information Security Officer, Steve Schmidt. And he said, I guarantee you'll find interesting places where you can look to see where you can do better as an organization. What he was communicating when he said this was that security teams should be involved into the end-to-end development of products. And when they are, they're likely to find areas where they can improve from a security perspective. But before we dive right into this advice, let's take a look at how most public sector organizations we've spoken to perform governance for IT projects. And then I'll show you how cloud can actually improve the traditional model, making it easier for security teams to be involved in the development cycle without disrupting development teams. The traditional governance flow for IT projects that we've seen in many organizations starts with a strategy or architecture team. They design solutions to solve business problems. To do this, they need to read and understand and interpret the organization's policies. These policies are usually in Word documents or PDFs, and they're stored in a policy repository. As the strategy team develops new solutions, they make design decisions that are consistent with these policies. Once the strategy team has a solution design that meets all the organization's requirements, they send this solution to a project team to implement the solution. At some point, the project team will reach a release milestone that has a governance gate, right? If they meet all the requirements of the gate will open and they will release a solution. In order to determine if the product meets the requirements, how the solution has been implemented must be checked against the requirements. This is where organizations usually employ audit teams. So they audit the solution against the requirements and share the results with governance teams who own or really manage these policies. If audit confirms the solution meets all the requirements, great. The governance gate opens and the solution is released. Design and audit artifacts are archived in case they're needed in the future. Some organizations never even go back to look at these. So the governance team has the option now to update the policy based on what they learned during the development of this solution. And then they can also provide feedback to the strategy team that informs future solution designs. One of the challenges of this traditional governance flow is that much of this is manual. Oftentimes, when a solution doesn't meet the requirements, project teams iterate on the implementation details until they can release the full solution and fully meet the requirements, right? So this actually slows down the development by, and it can slow down by a lot, right, for your release of your solution. Additionally, the process relies on strategy, project, audit, and governance team all interpreting these policies in the same way. And that's, rarely the case and can lead to really slow development and release processes. So, governance at the speed of cloud. Let's really look at how cloud can improve this process. Remember, everything in the cloud is code. So applications, infrastructure, configuration, and policies, they're all code. And since everything is code, including policies, this can dramatically accelerate the development and release of project. Now, when the strategy team sends over the architecture design to a new solution to the project team to implement, both both of the teams, use the code that implements the policies as a reference. Because the policy and the infrastructure and configuration are all code, the project team can use automated checks during the implementation of the solution to understand where policy deficiencies exist. So these are all automated now. And since they're automated, they can also check the progress requirements constantly and get feedback in near real time. Because this is possible, project team always knows whether they meet the requirements of milestone release gates. So the process of manually checking the project implementation against a written policy is eliminated, thus accelerating the release process. And then these automated checks against policy requirements gather data. And this data can be visualized in compliance dashboards in near real time as well. The governance team can continue to consume the data from the dashboard, as well as the strategy team, and you have the project team, and you have even operations an operations team that might not have been included at all if the traditional governance process was followed. And finally, the audit team can consume this data and understand if the project meets all the requirements, while the governance team can still provide feedback to the strategy team and update policies as needed. Most of the processes is automated, reducing the time it takes to implement projects. Determine if policy requirements have been met, and then they can just release it. This cloud not only enables you to do this with one project, but all projects, potentially accelerating projects while meeting security requirements. Most of the guidance so far has been focused on the technology configurations and automations that you might be able to implement, that you can implement. Going back to Steve's last piece of advice, be involved in the development cycle, this is really about people and the culture of your organization. Raising the security culture to your organization can pay big dividends. When security is everyone's job, regardless of job title, the goal is to make your security team more approachable. so that developers and infrastructure operation groups do not avoid them. You want everyone in your organization to feel comfortable seeking help from your security team. Whether you use DevOps or some other type of development methodology, you really also want to make sure that security requirements are embedded in every phase of your organization's development lifecycle. Instead of trying to just attach security to the end of the development cycle. So, for more information on creating this type of culture and creating this type of security team, please visit the URL on the bottom of this slide. So, that's a top 10 list. I hope that you'll agree that some of these items on this list, they're not obvious. Some of the customers actually that we've discussed this top 10 list with asked, is there an easy way to address, all the items on this list? So in April last year, AWS Security Hub actually launched a new security standard called AWS Foundational Security Best Practices. These controls closely align with the top 10 list that I just presented here. And we really recommend that you enable your AWS Security Hub. And the standard is in all accounts and regions where you have activity, enable it for them. Okay, and then really to learn more, please do really visit some of the documentation that I've provided here, Security Hub standards, and this is at the bottom of the page. And then, of course, as I said, my partner in crime is going to present to you Security Hub. So take it away, Abigail.
Thanks, Audrey. Hi, everyone. I am Abigail, a solutions architect here at AWS. And for today, I will do a demo of AWS Security Hub and show what are some of the cool things you can do with it. To use AWS Security Hub, you need to enable it within a particular region of your choice. In our demo, we have enabled it in Sydney region. Security Hub is a regional service. This ensures that all findings data analyzed is regionally based and doesn't cross AWS regional boundaries. Customer must enable Security Hub in each region to view findings in that region. In the summary page, you will see an overview of Security Hub insights, latest findings from AWS integrations, and also an overall security score based on security standards I have enabled. In our demo, we have 10 AWS accounts from where Security Hub collects findings from the security services enabled. It is also recommended that you first enable AWS organizations to simplify enabling Security Hub across your organization. Security Hub collects findings from different services such as intrusion detection findings from Amazon GuardDuty, vulnerability scans from Amazon Inspector, and sensitive data identification findings from Amazon Macie, among others. Security Hub can also collect findings from partner security products using a standardized AWS security finding format, eliminating the need for time-consuming time parsing and normalization efforts. Security Hub creates a score to show you how you're doing against security standards. A security standard is a collection of controls based on regulatory frameworks or industry best practices. In our demo, we have AWS Foundational Security Best Practices, CIS AWS Foundations Benchmark, and PCI DSS. Note that if you score 100% on a security standard, this does not mean that you will pass an audit for that security standard. Security Hub is focused on automated security checks. Most security standards have various controls that cannot be checked in an automated fashion, and those are out of scope for Security Hub. Security Hub security checks can help you prepare for an audit, but they do not imply that you would pass an audit associated with a security standard. Security Hub conducts automated security checks against controls. Each security check consists of an evaluation of a rule against a single resource. A single control may involve multiple resources, and a security check is performed against each resource. On the other hand, a finding is a potential security issue that is created when a check fails. If a check fails, Security Hub will provide you step-by-step remediation instructions to pass the check. Now let's go to the findings page and see all findings related to this resource. In the findings page, I can limit the view to only findings related to a particular resource and do my investigation from there. From here, we can see that there are GuardDuty findings related to this resource. I will send this finding to security team so they can investigate and perform remediation. You can also automatically send a periodic summary email, say on a daily or a weekly basis, containing insights of security standard findings. For example, here's a sample email containing AWS Security Foundational Security Standard Insights. If you are a CIO or IT security manager, you can get an understanding of your organization's security and compliance state from this periodic notification. And those are just some of the things you can do with AWS Security Hub. As we have shown, AWS Security Hub provides you with a comprehensive view of your security state within AWS and your compliance with security standards and best practices. Security Hub centralizes and prioritizes security findings from across AWS accounts, services, and supported third-party partners to help you analyze your security trends and identify the highest priority security issues. AWS Security Hub helps you answer fundamental security and compliance questions that you may have on a daily basis, such as, am I compliant or am I secure? Security Hub is a fully managed AWS service offering that is enabled within a region in minutes and aggregates findings across a customer's accounts. Security Hub allows you to manage security and compliance findings in one location, reducing the time spent wrangling data from different locations within the AWS Management Console. In addition to the default insights that are provided by AWS and AWS partners, you can also create your own insights to track issues that are unique to your environment. This benefit provides you with a certain level of customization that can come in handy when dealing with company security requirements and regulations. For key takeaways, when you hear AWS Security Hub, just remember these words: security, continuous, automated, actionable.